Philozoopia.
Today, we're embarking on a pretty fascinating journey, actually. We're looking at a timeless text, Nicolo Machiavelli's The Prince,
Right.
and seeing what it can tell us about something very contemporary, this intense political polarization we see, well, everywhere.
Indeed. And our sources for this deep dive are specific excerpts from The Prince, written, over 500 years ago?
Yeah, incredible.
But it gives this remarkably frank, sometimes unsettling perspective on power, on human nature, and really how leaders keep control when things are divided.
So our mission today is to explore Machiavelli's insights, which are surprisingly relevant, aren't they?
Definitely.
We want to see how his observations on managing factions, securing loyalty, navigating conflict, how all that can give us a lens to understand polarization today. Think of it as a shortcut to some pretty profound thinking. So let's dive in. So Machiavelli kicks off right at the beginning. He classifies all states, either republics or principalities. Simple enough.
Yeah. But he very quickly zooms in on the trickier parts, like ruling different kinds of principalities.
Right.
Especially those newly acquired ones.
Right, the new ones.
Yes, and what's immediately striking is how he focuses on the, let's say, inherent instability of these new principalities, territories added onto an existing state. He observes that, and I'm quoting here, men change their rulers willingly, hoping to better themselves.
Okay, standard hope for change.
And this hope induces them to take up arms against him who rules, wherein they are deceived, because they afterwards find by experience they've gone from bad to worse.
Oof. So pretty cynical view right off the bat.
You could say that. It's certainly insightful about human nature, or at least his view of it.
So if you're a new leader, this new prince, you immediately have enemies. There are the people you've, injured getting power. And then, ironically, the people who helped you but are now disappointed because things aren't instantly perfect.
Exactly.
It sounds like Machiavelli's first rule of power. Any change, even a good one, creates these splits, these fissures. We see that pattern in modern politics all the time, don't we?
Absolutely. That immediate disillusionment. That can be the first crack in any attempt at unity.
Yeah.
So this new leader faces a double challenge. And Machiavelli adds another layer. He says new territories are easier to hold if they share the same language and customs.
Makes sense.
But, he says, when states are acquired in a country differing in language, customs, or laws, there are difficulties, and good fortune and great energy are needed to hold them.
Okay, so that leads to a big question for us today then. What happens when people within a single state become so different in their views, their customs, maybe even their basic understanding of facts, that they're effectively living in different ideological countries, even if they share a border?
That's a powerful way to put it. And it connects to his next point about the danger of deliberately fostering internal divisions. He mentions it was a custom of our forefathers, like how Florence tried to control the city of Pistoia.
Pistoia, right. How did that work?
Well, the idea was to let rival factions within Pistoia fight amongst themselves. The thinking, flawed thinking according to Machiavelli, was that this kept any single group from getting strong enough to challenge Florentine rule.
So divide and conquer, basically.
Exactly. But Machiavelli warns strongly against this. He says such methods show weakness in the prince.
Weakness, not strength.
Weakness. He argues they're only useful in times of peace, but if war comes, this policy proves fallacious. His warning is stark. He says, when the enemy comes upon you in divided cities, you are quickly lost, because the weakest party will always assist the outside forces, and the other will not be able to resist.
Wow, that's a direct warning for any deeply divided society today facing external pressures, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And he contrasts this with ancient Rome. He analyzes why Rome was so much better at holding conquered territory than, say, France was in Italy during his time.
What was Rome's secret, according to him?
Rome had a strategy. They sent colonies to integrate new lands. They kept friendly ties with weaker neighbors while decisively crushing potential rivals. And crucially,
Yes.
they foresaw troubles early. They dealt with problems before they could fester and grow.
Okay, so we've looked at the instability, the dangers of division, but just understanding them isn't enough, right?
Not at all.
So next, Machiavelli gets practical. How does a prince actually rule in this kind of volatile situation? And he doesn't exactly pull punches on military strength.
No, he certainly does not. He lays it out very clearly. The chief foundations of all states are good laws and good arms. Good laws and good arms.
Both essential.
And critically, he argues really strongly against using mercenaries and auxiliaries,
Right.
hired guns or borrowed foreign troops.
What's wrong with them?
He calls them useless and dangerous, his reasoning. They are disunited, ambitious, and without discipline, unfaithful. Basically, their loyalty is only to their pay.
He even blames the, quote, ruin of Italy on relying on mercenaries.
He does, he says. The fact is they have no other attraction or reason for keeping the field than a trifle of stipend, which is not sufficient to make them willing to die for you.
That idea that external forces are just fundamentally unreliable, it reminds me of how political support can just evaporate if it's only transactional, you know.
That's a great parallel.
If it's not rooted in some genuine belief or shared identity.
Exactly, which is why he emphasizes that a prince ought to have his own forces. And these forces should be made up of subjects, citizens, or dependents, people with a real stake in the state.
Internal loyalty, real cohesion.
That's the core. It's about building a foundation from within, a lesson that seems incredibly relevant for managing polarization today, finding that common ground.
Okay, and then we get to the really controversial stuff, Machiavelli's take on cruelty.
Ah, yes. Cesare Borgia.
He holds up Caesar Borgia as an example. Now, Borgia was known for being ruthless, wasn't he?
Extremely. Son of Pope Alexander VI, used pretty brutal methods to carve out a state for himself in central Italy, in the Romagna region. But Machiavelli says Borgia's cruelty reconciled the Romagna, unified it, and restored it to peace and loyalty.
So cruelty worked in that case.
According to Machiavelli, yes. And he even contrasts Borgia favorably with the Florentines. He says Borgia was much more merciful than the Florentine people who, to avoid a reputation for cruelty, permitted Pistoia to be destroyed through inaction and division.
Allowed it to be destroyed because they didn't want to seem cruel. That's quite the twist.
It is. And this is where Machiavelli makes a really crucial distinction. He talks about severities being badly or properly used.
Properly used cruelty. How does that work?
Well, he suggests that if injuries, let's call them forceful actions, if they are applied at one blow and are necessary to one's security and that are not persisted in afterwards unless they can be turned to the advantage of the subjects, then they can be effective. Necessary evils, perhaps.
Okay, so quick, decisive, necessary, and ultimately for the subject's benefit.
That seems to be the idea. But, he warns, if cruelties multiply with time rather than decrease, they just lead to ruin. So it's not about being cruel for cruelty's sake.
It's strategic, pragmatic, not about morality.
Precisely. It's about the efficient application of force to achieve stability. Which I think leads us to another really interesting point he makes.
Go on.
About how princes get power and how they keep it. He argues that those who rise by their own ability, their own skill and effort, they find it difficult to acquire, but they keep it with ease.
Hard work pays off, essentially.
In a way, where those who rise easily, through good fortune or relying on the arms of others, they have little trouble in rising but much in keeping atop, their position is inherently fragile.
So power built on luck or borrowed strength is shaky. It needs to be earned, built on a solid foundation of your own making.
That's the implication. It speaks volumes about needing genuine internal strength and support, especially when times are fractured. Relying on others makes you vulnerable.
Okay, so from acquiring power, Machiavelli then shifts to the prince's image, doesn't he? What makes a leader praised or blamed?
Yes, entire chapters on this. And again, it's not always what you'd traditionally expect.
How so?
Well, he states quite bluntly that it's necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong and to make use of it or not according to necessity.
Know how to do wrong. That sounds bad.
It challenges conventional morality, certainly. He's deep in the territory of real politic here. He argues if everything is considered carefully, it will be found that something which looks like virtue, if followed, would be his ruin, while something else, which looks like vice, yet followed, brings him security and prosperity.
So appearing good might destroy you, while doing something that looks bad might save you.
That's his pragmatic calculus. It's not about endorsing vice, but observing what works in the real world of power struggles.
Which brings us to that classic Machiavellian question. Is it better to be loved than feared or feared than loved?
Ah, yes. The perennial question.
And his answer
is typically unsentimental. It is much safer to be feared than loved when, of the two, either must be dispensed with.
Safer to be feared. Why?
Because, in his view, men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous. Love, he argues, is held by a bond of obligation which, owing to the baseness of men, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage.
So love is unreliable.
But fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails.
Grim stuff. But there's a catch, isn't there?
A very important one. He immediately adds that a prince ought to inspire fear in such a way that if he does not win love, he avoids hatred.
Avoid hatred. How do you manage that if you're feared?
Primarily, he says, by keeping your hands off people's property and their women, abstaining from the property of his citizens and subjects and from their women.
Don't take their stuff.
Pretty much. And then he adds that incredibly famous, cynical line, men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony.
Wow. Property over family ties. That's stark.
It is. It underscores his view of human motivation, self-interest, especially material self-interest, runs deep. So avoid deep-seated resentment by respecting property rights.
Okay. And from fear versus love, he gets even more nuanced with the animal metaphors, right? The fox and the lion.
Yes, the famous pairing. A prince, he says, is compelled knowingly to adopt the beast, meaning he has to act pragmatically, sometimes like an animal, and he ought to choose the fox and the lion.
Why those two?
Because the lion cannot defend himself against snares, and the fox cannot defend himself against wolves. So it is necessary to be a fox to discover the snares, and a lion to terrify the wolves. You need both cunning and strength.
Cunning to see the traps, strengths to fight the threats. That seems vital for navigating a polarized world full of hidden agendas and open hostility.
Absolutely. And this ties into his views on keeping promises. He argues a wise leader cannot always keep faith when such observance may be turned against him.
So break your promises if you have to.
If necessary for survival, yes, his justification. Because men are bad and will not keep faith with you. Therefore, the prince shouldn't feel bound either if keeping faith harms him.
It sounds like he's saying you need to manage appearances very carefully.
Extremely carefully. He says it is very necessary to appear to have all the good qualities, mercy, faith, integrity, humanity, religion, but you need to be mentally so framed that should you require not to be so, you may be able to know how to change to the opposite. Be ready to act against those virtues if needed.
So it's all about perception management.
Largely, yes. He observes, men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are.
And those few who know the truth.
And those few dare not oppose themselves to the opinion of the many. Public opinion, the perception of the majority, holds immense power.
What does that mean for leaders today, navigating intense media scrutiny, social media, deep factionalism?
It suggests that crafting and maintaining a powerful, consistent public image managing that perception is perhaps as crucial, maybe even more crucial in some situations, than adhering strictly to traditional virtues. Perception can become reality in politics.
Okay, moving towards the end of The Prince, Machiavelli talks about fortune, this unpredictable force.
Yes, fortuna. He compares it to a raging river that floods everything, seemingly uncontrollable.
Seems pretty fatalistic.
At first, maybe. But then he immediately pivots. He reminds us that even with rivers, men, when the weather becomes fire, shall not make provision, both with defenses and barriers.
Ah, so you can prepare for fortune's onslaughts.
Exactly. He argues that fortune shows her power where valor has not prepared to resist her. It's a call for foresight, for preparedness, for agency. Don't just be passively swept away. Build your defenses.
And this links back to dealing with problems early, doesn't it?
It does. He stresses that political problems, like diseases, need early intervention. When foreseen, it is easy to remedy them. But if you wait until they approach, the medicine is no longer in time because the malady has become incurable.
He uses that hectic fever analogy, right?
Yes, the fever that's easy to cure but hard to spot early on. And then later it's easy to spot but hard or impossible to cure.
That seems incredibly relevant to political ills like polarization. If you ignore the early signs, the divisions.
They can become entrenched, systemic, perhaps incurable.
Yeah.
His point is, deal with the symptoms proactively before the whole system is overwhelmed.
A powerful warning. And then right at the very end, he shifts gears dramatically.
He does. With the exhortation to liberate Italy from the barbarians, it's a passionate call to action.
What's he calling for?
He's urging a new strong leader, a new prince, to rise up and unite Italy, which he describes as beaten, despoiled, torn, overrun. He sees an opportunity in the crisis.
He talks about the great justice of such a war, the greatest willingness of the people, if only someone would lead.
Right. He laments that Italian military virtue fails in the head, meaning there's a lack of effective, decisive leadership capable of uniting and commanding.
So it's a leadership vacuum.
Yes. And he calls not just for leadership, but for adaptive leadership. He wants a new military order suited to the times, one that will resist cavalry and not be afraid of infantry. He's arguing for innovation, not just relying on old, failed methods.
Which brings us back to today. Does that call for new approaches, new strategies, resonate with trying to bridge divides in our own fragmented societies?
I think it has to. Clinging to old ways of doing politics when the nature of the divisions has changed might be futile.
So, Machiavelli, after all the hard-nosed realism, the sometimes shocking advice, he ends with a plea for strong, unifying, and adaptive leadership to overcome deep divisions.
That's right. The ultimate goal beneath all the pragmatism seems to be stability and unity for the state.
What an illuminating deep dive. We've really seen how Machiavelli's ideas on factions, loyalty, power, human nature, they still echo so strongly today, don't they?
Incredibly so. He paints this picture where leaders have to be, well, astute, adaptive, sometimes ruthless.
But not out of malice, necessarily.
Not necessarily. Out of what he saw as the necessity of maintaining stability and unity, especially when society is fractured.
So the core lesson, maybe, for anyone trying to navigate today's polarized world.
I think it's about understanding the deep forces driving division, whether that's history, competing interests, shifts in public opinion. Understanding that is paramount. And then a leader's skill in managing those divisions, knowing when to be loved, when to be feared, always avoiding contempt and hatred, that becomes crucial for just surviving, let alone succeeding.
So thinking back over our discussion, what really stands out to you from the Prince today? Is it the need for your own arms, that internal loyalty?
That's definitely key.
Or maybe the hawks and lions strategy, the adaptability?
That too. But perhaps the biggest takeaway, especially right now, is his insistence that a wise leader deals with troubles immediately.
The hectic fever idea again?
Exactly. Don't wait. As he puts it, dealing with problems early, even to avoid a war, would not let them come to a head. Because he knew.
Yeah.
He knew that war is not to be avoided, but is only put off to the advantage of others. Delaying only helps your opponents or makes the problem worse.
That is a chilling thought. Neglecting deep divisions, putting off the hard work of addressing them, might just empower those who benefit from the chaos.
It's a stark warning.
So what does Machiavelli's insight about confronting those hectic fever problems before they become incurable really tell us about the polarization challenging so many societies around the world today?
Definitely something to chew on.
Philozoopia.